Okay, so good morning. I'm Kimberly Hill, also known as Kim Reeve when I went to school here. And I'm here to tell you about an adventure that I had from the time that I was 14 until basically now, because you know, when something happens in your life that changes the entire course of your life that you thought was never going to be your path, you're always figuring out how to recover after it. And when a major life event happens, it always lingers through different aspects of your life down the road. So when I was 14, and it actually was about close to this time, and I was trying to think of this on my way here, so 20 years ago, I don't know, yeah, I'm gonna be 34. So 20 years ago, or almost, I think it was around Thanksgiving and Christmas time, where this guy, this junior, and I was a freshman. It was one of the last classes to go here when there were freshmen in this building. And he started to just talk to me and, you know, have an interest in me. And he was a junior and I was a freshman, so I thought that was cool. He had a car, he had a job, all those things that you don't have when you're in ninth grade. So he seemed nice. He seemed really interested, but when I look back at it, there's all these creepy kind of things that if I had known these little signs, I would have been like, maybe this isn't a good person to talk to. So he would wait for me every day after school, and we had an hour in between cheerleading practice. So we would get out of school at 2:50 or something, and cheerleading practice wouldn't start till 4. So we had an hour to get in trouble every day before practice started. So he would wait for me and follow me or just walk with me around school. But every so often on those days, he would say oh, I got your phone number. Instead of asking me for my phone number, he asked someone else for my phone number. And I think at the time I thought that was oh, that's cute. He asked my friend who dated his friend for my phone number, but why wouldn't he just ask me? That's actually kind of stalkerish, right? That's kind of creepy. And then he started to get me to go with him to go get food, which I thought was really innocent thing. Oh, we'll go to DeBella's and get a sub after school before practice, which was great because you're hungry and you want to eat before you have to do practice. So especially when you don't have a car to get off of campus. So but quickly he turned that into needing to make out. And I recently remembering he loved to give me hickeys, and I never thought anything of it then. But he was quickly marking me to show that I was his. And like I said, these are all things that I still think about now, and as I'm thinking, I'm realizing even more the things he did that I never even looked at as sexual abuse or sexual control or those kind of things that have been really hard for me actually to accept and admit that he did for those 2.5 years that we dated. So yeah, I would have hickeys everywhere, and that's what we ended up doing. Instead of getting food, he would just want to make out. So quickly he wanted to get that control over me. And at the time I had a boyfriend, but I mean it was ninth grade. It wasn't a serious boyfriend or whatever. So I broke up with him, and then I started dating this guy. But quickly it turned from just making out to let's have sex right away. I was 14, and that's what his focus was, because if they can do that, then there's that control and that, oh, they're my first, and all those things that we say that are excuses as to why you would stay with someone even if they're not a good person, which I wholeheartely did for a long time. Oh, I love him, he's my first, he loves me, it's got to work out, I've spent all this time with him, so I can't give up on this, on our relationship. So I think I said no for a while, but by February we had sex, and then from there on out it just turned into slowly manipulating and controlling everything I did, who I was around, when I was around people, which should we turn that off? Which he didn't even want me around my family, he didn't want me around my friends. He just really would do all sorts of things to start messing with my mind as well. So the seclusion was one thing, and then the belittling who I was and putting me down and trying to really demean who I was as a person with, you know, calling me names, accusing me of things, and he would break up with me a lot, and then like get me to like say he was sorry and forgive him, and he wanted to go back out with me, and not knowing at the time that these are all like things that someone does to continue to build this control factor, to show that, well, I can break up with you, but you'll come right back to me. That's control. That's a cycle that continues, and over time, when as a person you continue to lose your, you know, your will, your courage, like your confidence that you're okay without this person. So that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to make sure that, you know, I didn't feel that I deserved to be with anyone else other than him. And he was just like a really not nice guy at all. But in the beginning, he was super nice, right? Like, he took me to go eat, he bought me things, he bought me clothes, we went to the movies, we would go play like putt-putt, we would hang out and have fun, and it seemed all good. And then I don't remember what the argument was over, and I've honestly been trying to remember like the first time he ever put his hands on me. But what I do remember is that there was some argument, and it most likely was over something that I wanted to go do, and he didn't want me around other people, so he got mad about it. And he jacked me up in the bathroom and his parents against like the mini blinds, and he like broke the mini blinds. He like broke, you know, his parents' mini blinds, and I don't know, and I just know that that ended, and it was like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to jack you up against the wall and hold you there for a little bit and scream in your face. Like, that was something that I just did, but I didn't mean it. And that becomes the repetitive cycle. Every single time he does something after that, you know, especially if it resulted in like me getting cut or hurt, then he would cry and please forgive me. Like, he would cry all the time. He like really was like the meanest person you know, but cry all the time so that he would have me feel sorry for him. And that was the only time he was never really sorry though, you know, he just wanted me to forgive him and be with him and not be upset at it. So in 9th grade, I knew that it like wasn't okay, and I knew that he wasn't treating me right, but at the same time, you know, he was my first and he loved me and I loved him. And I, for some reason, you know, used that, like my self-esteem and insecurities played into that fact that now I'm with this guy and I guess I'm supposed to be with him. So I continued to make excuses for his behavior. He would like rip up my agenda in the hallway and like throw it all over the place. And it seems like minimal, but that is not a minimal thing. Like, that's something that he shows that I can't stop him, that's showing he's in control. He would empty out my whole entire locker into the hallway. And it's control, but it's also embarrassing. Like, he embarrassed me all the time. And those things, the emotional, like, you know, damage through those kind of events over time, is actually one of the harder things to recover from, I feel. You know, like, I can heal from him cutting me. I can heal from, you know, he was never the kind of person to punch me in my face, because if he did, then people would know what was going on. And he was really great in making sure whatever he did was always covered up so no one knew what was going on. Even when, like, he punched my windshield like a gorilla on top of my car. That was a couple years later. And I'll jump back and forth. But when I finally wanted to get away from him and I tried to break off from him, that became even worse. So I, you know, for these 2.5 years, every day arguing, all the time fighting, crying, fighting, people knowing what was going on, people telling me he was going to kill me, and then I would just, you know, say I can handle it myself. I've got it covered. Like, it's not that bad, and, you know, make up really great excuses. So there's a block. I'm like a door won't shut. So, just making sure. Okay, it's still going. Notifications. Couldn't see it. That's what I'm always doing in my live videos. Is like notifications come. Like, I should turn them on. So yeah. So from the time that I was 14 to 17, we had all sorts of crazy arguments all the time, and a lot of times people would be involved. A lot of times his mom would be involved. His dad would be involved. You know, and it's just this crazy thing to think back that here we're arguing and his mom is involved in our argument, or he's fighting with his dad. I mean, he fought his dad a lot, which really should have been like a big sign that, you know, he fights with his dad a lot, like not in a playful manner. And the way he treated his mom, you know, was not great either. But they definitely helped him, you know, cover up or mitigate what he was doing. So when I finally kept trying to break up with him and trying to go hang out with my friends, this was just a couple weeks before my car accident happened, and it was graduation parties, so I was going to hang out with my friends. And he loved to play mind games all the time. So he would say, you know, I'd be like, I'm going to this party, and he'd be like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then he'd show up and like ruin the whole party and flip out and go crazy. Or, you know, I finally would actually be able to go somewhere because he was actually busy doing something. He would leave me alone, so I get to have a good night with my friends without fighting. So I wanted to go hang out with my friends, and he wouldn't let me get in the car. And I finally got into my car, and I had this big Buick, you'll see this big Buick Regal, big front door, window, 2-door car. And he jumped on it and punched my windshield and shattered, like, you know, bam, punched the windshield. So I just drove away because I finally got away from him. But then he got in his car, and I remember we were driving like from the city back over to Western Road, and he's driving right next to me on the expressway, like, I'll fix it, I'll fix it, I'll fix it. Don't tell anyone, you know, I'll fix it. So that car sat at his parents' house for like 2.5 days while he got my car a new windshield. And I think I told my mom like a baseball hit my car and he was gonna fix it. And after the fact, I know that my mom went and go look at the window and knew that the baseball didn't hit that window. But that was after the fact. So he always was doing these things. So when the car crashed, it had like brand new windshield, it had awesome brand new tires, all sorts of stuff. It was, you know, and then crashed. So all those years in between of the end when I was trying to get away from him and the 1 year where he wasn't in this school, which was, you know, amazing when I was in school, but not when he was out of school. He always managed to ruin, you know, cheerleading games or competitions or whatever it was supposed to be joyful. He always was, you know, ruining. If he was there to support me, he was probably fighting with me. If he was supposed to support me, he didn't show up. You know, whatever it was not ever a happy thing that he was there. So so 10th grade, he was here. So 9th grade and 10th grade, he was here. And then when I was in 11th grade, he was gone. He graduated, thank goodness. So, but all those years, those 2 years when I kept trying to make our relationship good or make it work, and it got to a point where it just was easier to not fight with him than it was to fight with him all the time. So I know that it got to the end where if he wanted to have sex, I just let him because I didn't want to, but it was easier to, you know, just let him do it. And if he wanted to go do something, I just did it. And it just became like exhausting, and I was just so tired of him, you know, causing these problems every day. I used to work at the mall in Marketplace, where I think it's like Marble Slab Creamery or something. It used to be different ice cream stores over the years, and he used to just stand outside of there, like in front of it, and just would like call me names and be like, cunt, whore, slut. Like he would just call me names, and he just did everything possible to show me that he was in control and that I couldn't stop him. Behind Subway, he would always want to get me out of there. Like I was safe in work, but if I came out of work behind that counter, he would always take me over behind the Subway door and like, you know, jack me up against the door over there and fight with me over there. If I was waiting to leave and have him pick me up and I was sitting over there and there were guys over there, the whole entire rest of the day would be him accusing me of like talking to the guys that were clearly far over there, and I was over there, but he just always was accusing me of things. And it was the mind games and the mental, like, non-real reality that he lived in. It was just impossible to keep up with because he just created this environment that wasn't even really true. So much so, you know, that when you lie all the time and when you create this environment, you don't even know what's true. So I don't even think he really knows what his life was really made up of, because it was all these lies to have to cover up what he was doing. So towards the end of me trying to get away from him, and, you know, everyone continuing to tell me he was going to kill me, and I definitely just had a plan to, like, go away to college and go far away so no one would know where I was and he couldn't know where I was. Like, that was my only hope. I figured once I graduated high school, I just would get out and he couldn't know where I was, because I tried to break up with him and he would just wait for me every night I worked at an ice cream store that is, I don't know, it's nothing now, but it's up next to the dance studios, next to the gas station on East Henrietta Road. And he used to wait for me there every night, like drunk or high or whatever he was doing, and then wait for me to leave and follow me home every night and make sure that I went home so that, you know, he could control what I was doing. He also would come in there all high and drunk and, you know, really embarrass me and, you know, just cause a scene. He just always was causing a scene. He would like to stop his car in front of me while we were driving, if we were both driving our cars, like on West Henrietta Road. He would step on my sandals when I would walk. He would, you know, I didn't have like any belt loops on any of my, you know, pants, because he would, you know, grab me by my belt loops all the time, lock me in his room, suffocate. He would like always put pillows over my head or try and choke me with a seatbelt. Yeah, like all things that were never him physically punching me in my face. And if there's one point that you take away from my story, it's that whatever you go through in life, just pay close attention to the actual actions of what are going on, because just because they're not punching you in your face or just because they're not physically hurting you doesn't mean that it's not really bad situation. So I think that's, you know, one of the things that if he had punched me in my face, people would have seen that all the time, then maybe, you know, it would have been different, but probably not, because I would have lied and said he didn't mean it, it was an accident, and I fell into a table, and I just would have created some story, you know, to make it seem like it was okay. All right, so leading up to the summer, I got my night license so I could finally drive around and go to parties. So that's when I started to like want to go out a lot more, since I could go out after 9. And the night that this accident happened, we actually had like a really good day, which I should have known like wasn't like normal, so something was gonna happen. So he didn't want to go to this party with me that I wanted to go to, but his mom actually like kind of convinced him to go, because she either was telling me to stay away from him and don't talk to him, or she was trying to help him, like help me do what I want to do, or she was writing me checks on the side because he was always spending all my money. So she was doing a couple different things to, you know, like try and mitigate this relationship, and she was just say stay away from him. I was like, well, that's great, like I don't really know how to stay away from him, like he kind of stalks me and like follows me around, so that wasn't really easy to just stay away from him. So we were at this party and we get there and the keg was kicked and he didn't want to be there. There's nothing to drink. So but he really didn't want to be there because there were a lot of guys there and my friends were there, and he knew that my friends were always telling me not to be with him, or that there could possibly be other guys, even though I like never really did that, except for one time I tried to like cheat on him to break up with him, but that didn't work either. And that was probably one of the big times where he really flipped out and really lost control, when I like kissed another guy to try and break up with him. And that actually my friend told my parents about, and I wasn't supposed to talk to him or see him, but he went to school here, so my mom like told the school not to let me talk to him, but that was kind of hard for them to enforce. So I talked to him anyways. I lied about everything all the time so that I could, you know, see him. So we were at this party and he wanted to leave, and we drove my car there that night, and he wanted to go home. My friend tried to get him to stay. It was like, I have liquor or whatever, you know, we have other things, you know, you don't have to leave. So I took him home in my car and we got to his house. And I always have been a big water drinker, even like before. I always drink water now, but I always have this big water drinker. So I needed to go to the bathroom. And remind like we hadn't smoked or drank or done anything that night because we had just gotten to the party. So now we're back to his house, so I go to the bathroom, and then on my way out he jacks me up in the kitchen and starts like arguing and fighting with me. Before I went into the house, I asked him if he wanted me to stay, and he said no. So again, mind games. I should have said no, of course I want to stay, you know, and that's what he probably wanted to hear. But I didn't want to stay with him. I wanted to go back to the party. So he jacked me up against the wall and fought with me for a little while, and then he finally got bored and he left. And this was, you know, like no big deal because we did this all the time. So he, like other times, he would just usually throw me out of that door in that kitchen, and I always remember that there was like little rocks outside, so it wasn't like just a, you know, blacktop or whatever. Like, so his parents' house was always a big prop for our arguments, no matter what was going on. His parents weren't home a lot either, so he could get away with a lot there. Or he took me to further out places so that people wouldn't know us. So if they saw us, they wouldn't know who we were if they witnessed fighting or arguing. like Hamlin and Mendon. He took me to Mendon Ponds a lot, or Hamlin, or Hilton, or places where and no one really knew where we were, So if something had happened that day, no one really would have known where we were or been able to find me. So at that party, we went home. He jacked me up in the car, in the kitchen. Then finally he left. He took his car, and I just was like, okay, good. I'm going back to the party. And something in me said, like, go back to the party a different way than how we went the first time. And he lives over by the old Friendlies on West Henrietta Road, which is like now with Duff's or whatever. So instead of going, we usually probably would have gone down Crittenden and East Henrietta to get over to Pinnacle. So instead I went down West Henrietta Road, down Calkins, over to here. He was waiting for me in the 7-Eleven parking lot right up the street. And when I drove by, he like cut a car off to get behind me. And then I thought I was getting pulled over because he was such an asshole. He was just such a jerk. Like, he would just always moon my classes. So like if you guys were all sitting here and I was in here, he would just like stand out there and like just be annoying or moon everyone, or he would just do whatever like dumb thing to show that he was in control, really. It may have seemed funny, but it really wasn't. So he also drove with his high beams on all the time because he also thought that was like a funny thing to do. So I thought I'm getting pulled over, and as I'm turning left on Good Roulette Road to go back to the party, going down East Henrietta Road, I realized that it was him. So I honestly didn't know what to do. I had my phone, and it was late at night, and I honestly thought that if I stopped my car, no one could get there soon enough to help me. If I called someone, no one could get there soon enough to help me. So I just kept driving, and I thought we were gonna end up in the houses at the end of the road. But instead, I ended up losing control of my car and flipping a couple times and ending up around a tree. Thus, in a split second, my whole life changed from then on. And after that night, that was something big enough that he couldn't cover up anymore. There was no making a story to cover this up. There was no, saying, I'm sorry, forgive me. Although he really did believe that we would go out, we would still be going out after this accident happened. And he was sure of it. Like, his grandma was allowed to see me and would come and tell me that. His mom has told me, years later, I ran into her one day and she told me that she praised to God that if I were to come back into their lives, that he would allow it. Crazy things, because that would never be something I would go back and do. So I'll show you the pictures, and then that'll give us a good amount of time to have some questions and ask me some things, and you can ask me anything. I'll share. So like I said, I was cheerleading and dancing. I truly believe that because I cheerleaded, that was my happy place, and that kept me going, because I know there were periods of time where I just was pretty much done with it all. I could have cared less. I know there were times when I was standing on that bridge above 390, just done, ready to be done, and he would of course pull me down, but it was close. I did not care anymore. I was done. I couldn't go through this fighting and upset and just feeling like the littlest, worthless of nothing that he made me feel like anymore. So thankfully, I think cheerleading was always something that at least it was safe. I could be around people. It was a place I had to go. He usually made me late to games, late to things. I would usually show up to, practices crying, but at least it was a safe haven for me. So this was the prom. That was probably June, so that was just a little bit before the accident. And one of the last times I can ever remember wearing high heels, because I can no longer do that ever again in my life, which sucks. And this was the last time I ever cheerleaded, because we went to nationals, I think it was in March that we went to nationals. And after that, cheerleading was over, the season was over. So I know that was the last time I had ever jumped, ran, done any of that stuff, because I also can't do that anymore. So this was the car before. And my mom made sure I bought a really big, heavy car. So maybe they're out of order. I don't know. What's after that? Keep going. Just keep going. Yeah, we'll go back. So here's the car upside down. I was stuck in there and I couldn't find my seatbelt. And I told him to move his car with his lights so I could see, because I'm I'm just going to unbuckle my seatbelt. I'm going to get out of this car. There's no big deal. I just can't find my seatbelt. And I couldn't really feel my legs. So I was upside down, my legs were around the tree with the hood of the car, and I was between the two seats. And they didn't know how to get me out. So he was going to try and flip that car over to try and get me out, and he probably wouldn't have called the police or ambulance to come and help first. He would have moved me, because that's, you know, he always was in that, like, I have to save this, I have to cover this up, no one can see what happened. Thankfully there was a couple on their way home that night, so they stopped him from doing that. He never fought guys, just girls, and they took him to go away, so then they called the police. I also know from years later that someone heard the accident, also called the police. So when they first got there to get me out, they didn't think anyone would be alive, and I just recently learned this past year that when the extraction crew got there, or the chief extraction fireman, he asked all of his guys what their plan was, and they just all looked at him because they had no plan, because they had no idea what to do. I was alive and conscious, but they couldn't find my legs, and they definitely didn't know how to free me. So he, I guess, was like crying and frantic and, you know, all around just whatever. He was at the scene the whole time. But I remember telling him that that was it. He'll never talk to me again, other than maybe in court, right? And that he can't cover this up, and, you know, this is it. There's no coming back from this. So 3.5 hours we worked together. We could probably keep going. And we finally got my one leg free. They were going to amputate both legs, not just one. I never had even thought about that until they were basically telling me that if they couldn't get me out, you know, the doctor was there not just to amputate the right leg, which was really more trapped than the left leg, but they were there to just amputate completely, because after an hour, they really are not supposed to let you stay in the car. So after an hour, they should have amputated my legs to get me out according to protocol. But I was conscious, alive, and stable, so the firefighters told them that they weren't amputating anything and that they could go away and they were going to get me out. So finally, after working together for 3.5 hours, they got my left leg out, and then we finally got my right leg out. But no one had any idea about my right leg because the car in the tree had pinched it from bleeding. So there was no blood on the scene when anyone arrived, and as they took away the car, there was no blood. So we had no idea, well, they had no idea what they were about to see. So does anyone have a weak stomach or may pass out for some pictures that are a little, okay, they're a little gruesome. So that's what they saw originally. And you know, what do? They cut your clothes off. I was conscious and so present, and to tell them not to cut off my shirt, because it's my favorite shirt. And they're like, oh, we're cutting your shirt off. So they cut off the pants, and then this is what they saw. So my femoral artery was cut from my leg down above my knee, and then instead of getting blood to my knee below, it just was dying the whole entire time I was in the car. So that, you know, the minute that you don't have blood to your leg or to any limb, the skin starts to die right away. So if they had moved me in a wrong way and unpinched that artery, you bleed out in 3 minutes. So thankfully, amazingly enough, those angels were there that night and holding me and making sure that they got me out and that I didn't bleed out. But if he had moved that car to try and get me out, or if he had tried to move me, then I probably wouldn't be here talking to you, because you can't stop blood to stop someone from bleeding out when a main artery is cut like that. So I had no idea that that's how my leg was until many weeks later. I definitely had no idea how bad it was. So, oh yeah, there's a little angel here. I was obsessed with glitter, and I actually have glitter on today. I have a son now, and I find I never buy anything that's sparkly anymore, which is so sad. Everything's blue. But I was obsessed with glitter, so I had all this glitter stuff. These are glitter purple dice, but I had these glitter angel wings that were on my center console, and I don't know, that I think whatever that is, it looks like an angel right there. And then there's actually one window that didn't break because it had a big sparkly sticker on it. So on the outside of the window, all you saw was glitter, and that window never broke. So they finally got me out, and they took me to, so my legs were around here, and they broke the back window over me, and then they had to continue pulling that all apart, and then they finally pulled me out through the back window. Don't really like the sound of glass breaking. So broke the glass over me. They just put a blanket and then they broke it to get me out. So not a huge fan of that. Or sirens or lights or any of those kind of things. So kind of really send me into like the panic feeling or whatever, that trauma. So 6.5 hours they did surgery on my leg to try and save whatever they could. And then for 3.5 weeks after that, every other day they debrided my leg, and they just didn't know if I was going to keep it or not. So cheerleader, dancer, that was my life. And now it was just, well, will I keep my leg or not? Will I walk again? What will I do on my own? So 5.5 weeks I was in the hospital. I had lots of surgeries as an external fixator. That's how they hold your leg straight and keep debriding without putting a cast on. My thumb was broken. That was like a little thing. I had an injury in my elbow that I had broken it, and that was filled with glass. So that they just let heal on its own, but it was like filled with glass. It was the only thing I knew about when I was in the car. And I kept saying, like, my elbow, you gotta, like, no, your elbow's not a big deal. Like, I was like, no, my elbow, I don't understand. They didn't care about my elbow. So yeah, that was a big journey. And then that was just the start of it, because after that, I just was trying to get my life back and figure out, like, who was I gonna be and what was I gonna do? I no longer could dance or cheer. I mean, I went to cheerleading for a little bit in a wheelchair, and that really wasn't fun. And I couldn't really find like excitement in that and watching them cheer in the wheelchair like that. That was really hard to do. So I stopped going basketball season, and then I just pretty much like went down that lane of just like, let's just party and not know what's going on all the time, because that was how I dealt with it for a very long time. And then I slowly could walk better, and I had surgeries to make things better. And we would just do surgery or medicine, like what was the next answer to try and make it better. I did keep my leg, but for a long time I couldn't feel my leg. I couldn't, stand or balance. One of those pictures in the beginning, and maybe if you just keep going, it'll like, I thought I organized it, but, so yeah, nah, maybe a couple more. This picture, if you can see, I'm not putting any pressure on my right leg because I couldn't put any pressure on it. And I also couldn't stand on my left leg for a while because my left leg was hyperextended the wrong way, 45 degrees. So that way. So that leg didn't work well. So this was the first time I could finally stand on my own. That was Halloween. And I came to school in a wheelchair that day, dressed up for Halloween. And then slowly got to where I could kind of stand. My Achilles tendon has shortened from being an external fixator, so for a while when I would walk, my heel didn't touch the ground, so it was like off the ground this much, so didn't walk very well for a long time. And then I had surgery to fix that. So if you want to go back. So that's how I came home from the hospital with the external fixator, and I couldn't walk or anything, so they built the ramp, and then I just lived in the hospital bed in my parents' room. I couldn't even go to the bathroom on my own when I came home, or shower on my own, or do any of that stuff. So when you have all those things taken away from you, you quickly have a whole new appreciation for things that you don't think are that important. But once all of that is taken away, all these other things don't seem so bad anymore, because all you want to do is go to the bathroom on your own, or give yourself a shower so someone doesn't have to help you. So, and then this is how I went to school, like this for a while. My leg had to be above my heart at all times. That's the only way to make sure your blood flows back down. And missing the arteries, so I'm now missing 2 main arteries from my knee down. My ankle is shattered. My fibula is gone from here up. And all the skin grafts and everything, you can kind of see like some of them right there. So yeah, for a long time, I had to go everywhere like that. Shopping, you name it, I went everywhere like that. And the little bus picked me up to go to school. So that, you see my book bag. So yeah, but long down the road now, I had my ankle fused almost, I think, 5 years ago. We re-broke it, took all the cartilage out. I used to have to wear an ankle brace all the time. I always looked at that ankle brace as like him still in my life. Like I could not be free of something. Like it was him there. Every day I had to put this ankle brace on. It was like he still was there. So finally when I could set that ankle brace free, it was like another like letting go of that past. and finally being able to walk without something helping me. And that really was like kind of the start of really feeling better again. And I've only been off of pain meds and pretty like clean for almost 4 years now. So I'll be 34 in May. And so really, I was 17 when the accident happened, and a lot of times I still feel like I'm 17 because my whole life froze for a long time. I don't remember a lot of it, and then now I'm finally like dealing with a lot of things that I didn't get to deal with because it was all about walking again, trying to go to school, trying to take care of myself, you know, trying to have my own place or live on my own, all those things. So, you know, never got to go away to college, never got to go have all those fun times, and, you know, was in a wheelchair for senior skip days and homecoming. So it was definitely an adventure, but every day it's a good daily reminder that, you know, what I've been through, and then I believe that I was spared, that my life was saved, and that the way my leg is that way, so that I never forget what I went through, so that I can always, you know, remember my like purpose is to share my story and raise awareness of valuing yourself and knowing if a relationship isn't bringing you joy and happiness and good things in your life, no matter what it is, it's you deserve more. And it doesn't matter how old you are, young or old in your life, you're gonna come across people that may be there to try and steal your joy, and you have to know enough that you deserve better. And it took all of this for me to realize that. So, do you have questions? Anything? Yeah.
Did you hurt? When the accident happened, did you hurt?
Did it hurt when I was in there?
Yeah.
So when I was stuck in there for that time, there was only like pressure. So it wasn't pain. Of course they couldn't give me anything when I was trapped in the car, but it was pressure. So as they would like cut the car apart, it either was more pressure or it felt like relief. So that's how we worked together to get me out. And the firefighters will tell you all about that actually as well. They'll say that, you know, they would pay close attention to my reactions and to what I would say. And I would tell them, sometimes I would tell them, but they could actually just watch how I reacted when they would cut. And if it seemed like I started to maybe hurt or more pressure, they would stop. And if they could see that it was good, or I could tell them I could feel like my leg was moving a little bit more, the pressure seemed to be relieved, then they would keep going. So yeah, if I had been knocked unconscious, I probably wouldn't have either leg. They probably just would have had to amputate both legs. But thankfully I don't remember flipping, and I just remember I was there in the car and I couldn't see and I couldn't find my seatbelt. But I'm told that I was screaming for a little bit of time in the middle. So that must have been when I was screaming at him. But I don't remember that. So yeah, I didn't necessarily hurt when I was in that accident, trapped in there, but a whole lot of pain after. But pretty good with the pain now. And I don't like no meds, but I just make sure I work out and stay strong and stay healthy. And that is like an everyday mission, so that I am not living where I have to rely on meds every day to get through my day. So yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Did your parents know about it?
Yeah, so they knew. They didn't know how bad it was. No one knew about like the sexual stuff. Like, in fact, I've only started actually talking about that in the last few years, because it's very hard for me to admit or accept that I allowed him to do that, and that you know, it's weird because I always considered myself like a strong person, or that I was in control of my life, but like I really wasn't that strong of a person. But my trauma counselor actually tells me that people that stay in those kind of relationships, just like you, are very strong because you didn't give up and that you keep trying. It's just that a lot of like people like that, like me and other people that stay in those kind of relationships, you know, you believe that you can change them, you believe that you can make them better, that you can help them understand that they shouldn't be that way. They'll want to change for you. And I truly believe that over time, you know, he could not be that way, and that I didn't ever understand why he would act that way, why he would treat me that way, why he would talk to me that way. Like, why did he feel need to argue and fight with me all the time? God bless you. So they definitely didn't want me to be around him for a little period of time. And I really think my mom just should have sent me away to like go live with my aunt in Virginia or something, so that I was fully away from him, so I could have seen how crazy my everyday was. So I literally like just cried in these hallways for 2.5 years, like every day with some other argument and fight. And most people knew what was going on. They just never knew how bad it was behind the closed doors when he would, do all those other things versus just like throwing things at me or calling me names or breaking stuff versus him actually like physically hurting me or, he was really weird sexually. He really was. He did lots of weird things and it was really uncomfortable, like stuff that he just like, there's so many aspects of him. Like I always say that your relationship doesn't have to be as extreme as what I'm describing, and it could even be more extreme. There's all different types of relationships that could be unhealthy, but with him, not only was he mentally controlling, emotionally controlling, psychologically damaging, and physically abusive, but he was also really, really, he pressured having sex all the time, but he also would have like torture pornos, and he would have like Chicks with Dicks magazines under his bed, and I saw these things when I was like 14, but I don't even think I don't know what I thought of it, honestly. I just think I remember being like, why would you have that? Or like, what, like, and he would laugh about it as if it was like funny, but that's kind of like I think a sign looking back that like there was something like really kind of weird going on in his head that wasn't really healthy. So yeah, they tried, but I was a good liar, like a really great liar, and a really great story maker. So after the accident, I told my mom a lot of truths of things that weren't what I originally said. There was one time when we were in front of Fridays and he was fighting with me and he had shut my arm in the window of the car door so that he grabbed my arm, shut it in the window so I couldn't move, and there was a camera involved, and it was my mom's camera, and it got broken. And I don't know how I told her it got broken, but after the accident I was like, well, this is really how that got broken. Or a lot of times he would rip teddy bears out the top. Like he would break things he would give me, like he would give me a teddy bear, but then he would rip the head off of it. Or, like he was just very like destructive as well. So, any other questions? Anything? Yeah.
How was it when you went to court?
Okay, so court. So, he told under oath that he wrote me a letter after the accident happened, and my mom never gave me any of the cards or anything that he sent to the hospital. Every so often he would send like anonymous flowers that would be like purple roses. He never bought me flowers. There was one time he bought me flowers, and I remember it very, very fondly because he sent them here on my 17th birthday, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy he actually sent me flowers. Like, I should have known something was going to be up, right? Like, that was not going to be a good day. He accused me of making out with someone in front of like where I used to work. When I got to his house, ripped and broke all the flowers, and then the whole rest of the night was just one big argument because I wasn't making out with that person. I always say I should have done everything he accused me of doing, because that would have just been one big grand adventure, because he always accused me of doing all sorts of stuff that I really never did. It's just in his mind, if they can argue and fight with you all the time, like that's the excitement. It's just this bad addiction that I don't think they know how to like move forward from. But sorry, ask me the question again. I like sidetracked.
How was it at court?
Okay, so when we got to court, this letter that he had written to me, he said he was so sorry for everything that he had done to me, and he never said what it was, right? So it was this very vague letter, like, I'm so sorry, please forgive me, I wish I could undo it. And then when my lawyer asked him what he was sorry for, he said he was sorry that we would go out to eat, and that he would eat and eat and eat, and that he was overweight. That's what he said. That's all he could come up with. And like legally, I have depositions of the lies that they told under oath. His mom said that we had like a normal teenage relationship and just with normal everyday fighting. They tried to say that my car was broken, even though we drove my car all the time, spent my money all the time, and my car definitely had nothing wrong with it. Like I said, I had 4 brand new tires. I work at the mall, so I was always getting my car fixed at Sears while I was at work. It was anytime there was anything wrong, I was just like, okay, fix my car, and it was great. There's nothing wrong with my car, and it was super solid. So they tried to just come up with a bunch of reasons and lies. They charged him with they charged him with reckless endangerment, reckless driving, attempted vehicular manslaughter, and then when we after depositions and went to court, we didn't do a jury trial. So at the time, I think because so much of what my life was recovering and trying to walk again and having surgery, I wish we would have gone to trial, but mentally at that time, I don't think I was like stable enough to even go to trial. You know, like I was just so damaged and so broken that, but he always told me he would never get in trouble. He always told me that, you know, he would, no matter what would happen, he would never get in trouble. There was nothing I could do to stop him. It didn't matter what I said or what I did. He was always going to get away with it. And his mom and dad really did always save him. Like if he got suspended in school, like his mom would come in and somehow get him like unsuspended. And she would just, you know, do his homework for him, and just, he was an only child. So she did a lot to kind of make it seem like there wasn't things wrong with him. She had him go back to college after to try and take classes and make it seem like he was, you know, a normal, productive member of society, which he wasn't. He couldn't do his classes and he couldn't spell, and that wasn't going to happen. So I remember just being very angry and very like upset and enraged when they were talking and all the lies that they would say. And that's one of the books that I'd like to do, is just turn those depositions into a book to show like the mindset of someone that can create so much lies, and, you know, even to have the family on their side to have to lie. But, you know, I was suing them for a lot of money, so they had, you know, that was their defense. They said he wasn't guilty in court, so we settled out of court with my settlement, and that was it. And he just roams out there. Last I knew, I don't know where he is now. He's probably still living with his parents, but I know he has 2 DWIs, and I don't know what happened with that. But, you know, with a third, so I figure eventually he'll get what he deserves. But he's not worth, you know, us ever, like people were gonna go fight him or whatever. It's not worth it. He's not worth anyone else to have any issues in their life. He's pretty terrified of my husband. I know that much, that he thinks, like, I know one day they were at a club or something, and he thought that my husband, at the time my boyfriend, was gonna beat him up, and he's not worth anything. So he never was a really great person, honestly. I believe he probably had great things, and something happened in his life where it put him down this, you know, mindset where he just didn't really know how to handle life. And if his mom and dad fought all the time, if his dad did that to his mom all the time, and that's what he learned, and he never learned any different, I'd like to believe that you could change your ways and you could get help. I know that even for me, like the habits I learned in that relationship, for example, he bought me a ring, and it was gold, and it had a blue rhinestone in it, and I wear white gold with purple, so everything I do is purple. And I didn't understand why he did that. So I swear I saw it in one of these pictures. I was looking last night. Okay, yeah. So look on the back of that picture as you guys look around it. So he had bought me this ring, and I didn't understand why he bought me a ring that I wouldn't like, that wasn't my favorite things. And so he just must have ordered it off of QVC or something, like, I'll just get her a ring. The interesting thing about this ring is whenever he got mad at me, which was daily, right? Whenever we fought, I would throw it at him, and then like say, fine, have your ring back. I had a really bad habit of it. So what do you think I did when I fought with my fiance, when I got mad at him? What did I do with that ring? I throw it at him. So I had to learn not to do those things. You know, I had to learn how to have a normal relationship. I had to learn that it's okay to argue and it's okay to fight, but, you know, it's not okay to take it to the next extreme. I know extremes. So like I go to trauma counseling now, still trying to figure out like what's normalcy, right? Like what's a normal, like just normal arguments, normalcy, just resting. Because even for all those years after the accident, I was always go, go, go. That was how I got through it. You know, it was like having surgery, do this. And also those years where I partied a lot and don't remember what happened. But so it's really only been probably 4 years now where I've been like sober. I mean, I have a drink here and there, but that's it. I used to do a lot more. And know what's going on, fully present, not falling asleep while I'm eating my cereal, you know, waking up ready to go. And I don't even drink coffee anymore, so I really have like no substance to get me started for the day, which is like an awesome thing, because for 13 years I did. and then I still drink coffee. I nothing against coffee. I just really just don't drink it anymore. So, but for me, it's something because I always took something to get up and go in the morning. So when I stopped taking my medicine and I was so super tired, because now I have no opiates to wake me up in the morning, I started drinking coffee. So these are just all different pictures. You guys have some time to look at them. But yeah, you know, we partied a lot together, but we only just drank and smoked. And then after the accident, I guess he went to a whole nother level. As did I, probably did kind of too, because I was prescribed pain medicine, like legally. I had a legal drug dealer. I went to see her every month, and I had all of it. You know, the horrible things that are going on now. I was one of the first people to prescribe OxyContin years ago, and you know, that's like created this horrible thing that's going on now, and it's crazy to think. And I just remember like this also brought all those bad like opiates and drugs into my life, so I'm just so glad to be free of all of that and to have it all gone. I thought I'd like be like a pothead the rest of my life, but then I had my son, and then I was like, I think I kind of really like this whole like knowing what's going on in my life thing. I kind of like being sober and being able to like be fully present and know what he's doing and remember it all. Like I really don't remember my first apartment living there because that's how I got through my whole life changing and everything being taken away from me. You know, I was very angry for a very long time. So, you know, I have my injuries and I have my scars, but I think that was, you know, God or whatever power that be was showing me that I had to learn to love myself from within. And it didn't matter how I looked or, you know, what I did. I had to learn to love who I was, and that no one else was going to do that for me. And that no one can make me happy and no one can give me the love that if I don't love myself. And I think it's like, even at 33, it's still something that, hi, good, how are you? It's still something that I'm working on, and that's okay to do, you know, it's okay like to do that. You know, life is a journey, and nothing has to be exact or finite tomorrow, but just know that I did let him, you know, change the course of my path and take away from what I would hope and dream every single one of you guys get to do as you go on to college and have your friends and your fun and do what you want to do for you only. And know that whatever boyfriend, husband, whatever later down the line, you know, comes into your life, make sure that you've done what you need to do for you first, you know, and that's the most important thing. So I have a lot of messages, but like that's one of them I really want to, you know, get across is, you know, there's a lot of things I could talk about that would never get me crying, but if we start talking about me not being able to cheerlead and not being able to dance and do the thing that I love the most, that's where I would start like breaking down. That still hurts really bad. So, and I'm better with it, but it still hurts. And so everyone has that one thing. So don't let people take away your joy, and know that you deserve it no matter what anyone else tells you. And you guys all have been taught this with this whole bullying thing, but most people that are like that, they have things going on. He had a lot going on. He needed help. He needed love. He needed someone to, you know, help him through whatever was going on. So.
The republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There's several announcements this morning.
Hi, Miss Pat.
Here we go. Alrighty, attention all students
She's
who
still
are
here though?
interested in traveling to
She wasn't in
Europe
there when I was in there.
2019, not 2018. Not of those of you who are
She
traveling
was
again this school year.
the principal
For those of you
when
who
I
are
was here too.
interested in traveling into Europe in 2019,